Thank you for sharing your thoughts. Ladies and gentlemen, our other resource person, Dr. Asha Bajpai, member of NALSA. Professor Dr. Asha Bajpai has been involved in teaching, research, training, law reform for nearly 4 decades now. Founding Dean of the School of Law at the Tata Institute of Social Sciences, she is an expert relating to child abuse and juvenile justice issues. She is a member of the National Legal Services Authority and Maharashtra State Legal Services Authority. She has several publications to her credit. I invite Dr. Asha Bajpai, member of NALSA, to address this audience on this significant occasion.
Thank you. Good afternoon. Honorable Justice Swatantra Kumarji, Justice Shri Tate, Member Shri Syed and Sanjay Kumar, Dr. Sathe, and Gujarat Human Rights Commission Chairperson, and Madam Prabhavalkar. Access to law and justice, as we all know, is a hallmark of any civilized society, especially in a democracy like us, which is governed by the rule of law. You have poor, disadvantaged, marginalized people like women, children, disabled, elderly, persons with HIV/AIDS, sex workers, forced laborers, bonded laborers, migrants, and persons with different sexual orientation, whom we call the third gender. These are the people whose human rights are most violated. And these are the people who need justice, who need equality, who need freedom. And just imagine, I'm just asking you, all of you, to just imagine a peacock, a monkey, a fish, a bird, a cat, and they're given a choice for an exam. And the exam is climb a tree. They all have given equal exam. Same exam of climbing a tree. Certainly, many will be unable to do so. Similarly, in our society, we have different kinds of people, different groups of people, different disadvantaged sections of people with different vulnerabilities. They have different capacities, they have different needs, and they need different responses. We need to recognize these differences. We need to recognize these diversities and also see what kind of response we have. Let us look at women. We all have a gender identity. People are female, male, or the third gender. All this is because of the conditioning that we are brought up in. The homes that we are in, the environment that we are exposed to, the toys and games that we play as girls and boys, the subjects that we take, and the professions and the work that we take, ritual, symbols, and culture that we are asked to embrace. It all depends on that. According to one estimate, India has around 2 million transgender people. The Supreme Court acknowledged the rights of person to self-identify their gender. Further, the court recognized that the right to equality under Article 14 and the freedom of expression under Article 19 were deliberately phrased using gender-neutral language. If you see, these two articles say all persons and not men and women. So there are Supreme Court verdicts that have asserted the LGBTQ rights. Remember the NALSA case. Remember the NALSA case that affirmed the constitutional rights of Article 14, 15, 19, and 21 of the Constitution for the third gender. The court upheld the rights of transgender persons to decide their gender and asked the central and state government to grant legal recognition to this gender, such as male, female, or third gender. So now you see in many forms, in many places, male, female, or third gender. Earlier it was not there. Similarly, the Navdeep Singh Johar case, rulings essentially laid down that LGBT community are equal citizens and underlined that there cannot be any discrimination in law based on sexual orientation and gender. You have some examples of transgender people who have created history. They have become Bharatanatyam dancers. They have become lawyers. There's a college principal with a PhD, and there is also a police officer, an MLA, and many more of such examples are there. We have a saying by Dr. Nelson Mandela. He said that no one truly knows a nation unless one has been inside its jails, inside its prisons. So a nation should not be judged by how it treats its highest citizens, but its lowest ones. The Constitution of India provides fundamental rights, which also extends to prisoners, all prisoners. You may all remember, it was mentioned by Dr. Sathe also, the D.K. Basu judgment and the Upadhyaya judgment laid down guidelines with respect to rights of arrested persons. The main object behind these guidelines were to bring transparency and accountability and to ensure and guarantee that prison authorities followed minimum standards while lodging women and children in jail. And it was further held in the same judgment that children up to 6 whose mothers are imprisoned can live along with the imprisoned mother, but their rights should be protected. Their rights to childhood, their rights to health, their rights to development, their rights to education should be also followed by the prison authorities, including vaccinations that they have to be given. Supreme Court has clearly stated that courts should prioritize cases of women and children prisoners, but the lack of police escorts, inadequate legal representation, many times this cannot be done. Clearly we all see there's a need to do considerably more in this area of child rights, women's rights, and rights of prisoners. I recall a very significant judgment relating to reproductive rights in a suo motu PIL in the Mumbai High Court. I quote, the court stated, a woman's decision to terminate a pregnancy is not frivolous. Abortion is often the only way out of a very difficult situation, and directed the jail authorities not to wait for court orders, but to send the women prison inmate to the nearest state hospital if they seek to terminate their pregnancy within the deadline set by the law. A very significant judgment for women prisoners. Now, if you look at, we had a street play, Nukkad Natak, in the morning, a very clear message of a second chance. Millions of children in conflict with law spend substantial periods of their lives in child care institutions, in special homes, in orphanages, in police lockups, and even in prisons. These children are at the risk of violence, which we saw, which was clearly demonstrated from staff, officials, and even their fellow children who are there inside the institution. Corporal punishment in law is prohibited, but is very much there. Overcrowding, stigmatization, discrimination, and also poorly trained staff sometimes heighten the risk of violence to these children. It is clear now, as we saw in the morning, children in conflict with law are children in need of care and protection. We as a society, as a family, as a school, as a state, as a community have failed. If we had looked after the children in need of care and protection, they would never have become children in conflict with law. All of them we saw were children in need of care and protection in the morning. I'll give you a case similar to what we heard. This boy was 17-year-old at the time of the crime, and so was tried as a minor. He was the eldest of 6 children. He left his village at the age of 11 and lived his formative years doing menial jobs in a huge city. His family was amongst the poorest in the village. The father was intellectually disabled and could not take care of the children. Mother sent him to work to this huge city in the hope that he would earn well and bring the family out of poverty. But he sent the money for some time and then stopped and finally disappeared. No sign of him. Later, he was found guilty of heinous crimes, as they say under the law, JJ Act of 2015, of rape and murder, and became a child in conflict with law before the juvenile justice system. Is he a child in conflict with law? Or is he a child in need and care and protection? Or we failed to take care of a child in need of care and protection, and he became a child in conflict with law. The various agencies, the family, the state, the community, the society, the school, all the institution, all of them were the it is their failure. I would also like to state that the use of language and words describing people with disabilities has changed over the time. Insensitive language can make them feel excluded and can be a barrier to equality and full participation. We can say an accessible parking space rather than handicapped parking space, or an accessible washroom rather than handicapped washroom. We are still calling mentally deficient children home, I'm sorry, the MDC home, rather than a home for intellectually disabled children, or a home or intellectually disabled children home. Why MDC now in this age? I think we need to look at that and see why. In a significant step towards promoting inclusivity and accessibility, you may recall the Chief Justice of India recently inaugurated the Mitti Cafe in the Supreme Court premises. This cafe is entirely run by staff with disabilities. The inauguration ceremony, as we did today in the morning, featured a rendition of the national anthem in sign language there also. I would like to share with you a story about 100 orphan children with intellectual disability. Many of them were victims of, or survivors as we call them, of sexual abuse in a child care institution. First time, a group of intellectually disabled orphan children appeared before the criminal justice system in Bombay. They deposed before the system in sign language. And a few of them tried to get justice and got justice. A few of them later started working independently and living independently. It shows that with appropriate interventions and support like counseling, life skills, education, training, and vocational guidance, they can also be self-sufficient, and a story of exploitation to empowerment. This is what they can all do. We saw it, they can do it, they will do it. Another group that I would like to talk about for equality, freedom, and justice are the sex workers. In 2020, the National Human Rights Commission issued an advisory recognizing sex workers as entitled to the same protection as other informal workers. So they are recognized as informal workers. The Indian Supreme Court has ruled that sex workers were covered by Article 21 of the Constitution and recognized that sex workers are entitled to equal protection under law. The court directed both central and state government that sex workers should not be arrested, penalized, harassed, or victimized during brothel raids, nor should the possession of condoms and other safer sex commodities be treated as evidence against them. And the police should be sensitized to these rights and laws. The court also ensured that the children of sex workers can also avail essential services, including healthcare, education, etc. This Supreme Court ruling was an historic one for sex workers because India now joins a handful of countries like Canada, New Zealand, that has explicitly instituted legal protection for sex workers. Recognizing the equal worth and dignity of every person is not only ethical, but also critical for ending AIDS. Why? Because after this, after this recognition, the sex workers have taken steps to contribute to the decline of HIV in India by negotiating condom use with their clients. A study in 2021 found that 98% of sex workers started using condoms after this recognition of their human rights. They must be made aware, actually that's the issue, they must be made aware to assert their human rights and secure access to services that would be provided to them under law, maybe including the documentation that they need of their residence, their identity, Aadhaar cards, ration cards, the poverty elevation support, and other schemes of the government that are there. Another group that I would like to mention, since we are talking about equality and justice, India is a home to over 135 million old elder persons. And this population is expected to reach nearly 20% of our entire population by 2050. And old age is the most vulnerable phase of a human cycle. Senior citizens are subjected to abuse, and not only from unknown persons, but also from their close relatives. The recently released NCRB Crime in India report 2022 reported Maharashtra recorded 572 crimes against senior citizens. In Mumbai, alone, 5 murders of senior citizens, 3 attempts to commit murder, 84 cases of seniors being hurt, 11 cases of assault on women with intent to outrage her modesty, and 149 theft cases. As many as 120 senior citizens were cheated, and 22 of them filed forgery cases. And this is the latest statistics. I think Maharashtra stands second now after Delhi, as far as offenses against senior citizens are concerned in the new report that is there. We have the Maintenance of Welfare of Parents and Senior Citizens Act 2007, and it is a legal obligation for children and heirs to provide maintenance to senior citizens. But in case they do not do it, they are abandoned, then they have a right to reclaim the property given to them and get it back as gifts. A very important right that they have. Finally, another group, and because of time limit, another group that I would like to share with is the trafficked persons. Human trafficking, as you all know, is a global, recognized, organized sex crimes. I mean organized sex crimes that trades in people, exploits them, takes advantage of their desperation, and they are organized networks throughout the world. Anybody can be a victim. Anybody is there. Traffickers, have now integrated modern technology into their business model, as they call it. I'm putting business model in quotes. At every stage of the process, every stage they are using modern technology for recruiting victims and exploiting them. They have been, misusing this technology for transfer illicit profits also, and also to launder their profits through technology. But this technology we can also use we are using it for a positive use also, to help in investigations, to enhance prosecutions, to raise awareness, and providing services to victims. So we can also use technology, and we have been using it positively as well. Our Indian Constitution, yes, we all have these vulnerable groups, the vulnerability is there, but Indian Constitution stands as a beacon of hope, vowing equality, freedom, and justice, and protection against exclusion and discrimination on diverse grounds. We need to recognize, integrate these vulnerabilities, differences into our work, into our profession, so that we realize the constitutional mandate of freedom, equality, and justice for all. Legal empowerment is a powerful tool, and to promote inclusion and diversity, education and legal awareness can empower those who are marginalized to be excluded from discussions. I see many law students here, and I see a very important role for law students here in creating awareness. You can use your creativity, your art talent, your artistic talent in simplifying laws to create to the different target groups in our society. We know you can do it, and so that these groups, these vulnerable groups, can demand their rights and get justice. Thank you.
Thank you for your valuable insights. Ladies and gentlemen, we are indeed fortunate and privileged to have with us as the chief guest Honorable Justice Shri Swatantra Kumar, former judge of the Supreme Court of India and former chairperson of the National Green Tribunal. Enrolled as an advocate with the Delhi Bar Council on 12th July 1971, he practiced in various high courts and the Supreme Court. Appointed as judge of the Delhi High Court in the year 1994, and then appointed as Chief Justice of Bombay High Court in the year 2007. Appointed as Judge Supreme Court of India in the year 2009, then appointed as Chairperson NGT from 2012 to 2017. Justice Swatantra Kumar has, during his tenure as NGT Chief, passed several landmark orders and judgments. These include the ban on 10-year-old diesel and 15-year-old petrol vehicles, the slew of directions for regeneration of the Ganga and Yamuna, the demolition of illegal hotels in Himachal Pradesh, and the ban on plastic items in Delhi, Haridwar, and Punjab. Yes, that called for an applause, and thank you for the spontaneous one. I will invite our chief guest, Honorable Justice Shri Swatantra Kumar Ji, former judge of the Supreme Court of India and former chairperson of the National Green Tribunal, for his address.
calls for a good afternoon to all of you. So, my esteemed younger brothers, firstly, the chairman of the Maharashtra Human Rights Commission, Justice Sahyadri, Justice Sayyad, the member, Mr. Sanjay, the member of the, then Madam Bajan, and of course, our great lawyer, Mr. Sate, to whom I am particularly thankful for saying about my being Chief Justice of the Bombay High Court, which has been probably the most important facet and part of my life. So that's the first thing. I thank for that, Mr. Sate. And all the dignitaries of the dais, ladies and gentlemen, and most importantly, dear students. Firstly, our program begins with the national anthem by the beautiful children. And I must say that they sang in a most eloquent manner, and whatever little disability they earned because of no fault attributable to them, they really let their singing voice and instruments convey that they are fighters of the life. So my heartiest congratulations to these children. Then the group of boys who conveyed their second chance, but they were able to convey the message of their second chance as the first thought for the society. They really conveyed how the society, besides being punitive, owes its duty to be reformative. Really compliments to them. My special thanks and compliments to Justice Date, Justice Sayyad, and their colleagues and the team for having invited me. And this is really an honor to be with all of you and have an opportunity to talk about the human rights on a Human Day celebration. I was very happy to know that the way they are running their institution, whether we talk of management, assess and approach to the commission, deciding of cases, and the various administrative and good social functions that they are performing. So my compliments to you and your entire team. I do see signs of little tiredness and fatigue on your faces. So I'll try and be as precise as possible within the time allotted to me. We are talking of human rights. Now, whether, after all, do universal human rights begin in small places, close to home, so close and so small that they cannot be seen on any maps of the world? Unless these rights have meaning there, they have the little meaning anywhere. Without concerned citizens to uphold them close to home, we shall look in vain for progress in the larger world. Ladies and gentlemen, as you have listened to very eloquent addresses on the human right and the incidental laws and judgments pronounced by the courts, so I will try my best not to be repetitive and try to take you on a different tangent. What I think is that undoubtedly the human rights have two primary features. Firstly, human rights cannot be acquired, transferred, or disposed of by any act or incident. As such, they inhere universality in all human beings by virtue of their humanity alone. Secondly, their primary correlative duties rest on public authorities of the state and not on individuals. The UN Charter 48, which have been referred to you in quite a detail, is the first document globally executed where larger number of countries agreed to abide by this charter or the human right. It followed by different conventions. In fact, if you look at the global formulation of laws or treaties or conventions, it is the human right which has given birth to diverse aspects of human life for the purposes of their coming to a practical sense in true meaning of law. That is how it is so enforced and implemented. Look at our constitutional scheme. We do refer to different articles of the Constitution, whether they fall under the chapter of fundamental rights, or they fall under the directive principles, or they fall under the umbrella right, which is free of restriction, that is Article 21. But kindly see our preamble of the Constitution and the wisdom of the framers of our Constitution, where they say that the citizens of India would have social, economic, and political freedom. This is the essence of our Constitution. How can the people of a country have these three freedoms if their human rights are not protected? So, to ensure the protection and proper enforcement, enjoyment of human rights is the basis or essence of our constitutional mandate contained in our preamble and supplemented by different articles of the Constitution. Article 14 talks of equality before law and equality in law. The distinction is quite clear. When we talk of an equality before law, please look at the preamble which I just indicated to you. What kind of equality then you're talking about? And when the equality is understood in its correct perspective, rest of the rights automatically fall in place. They do become part of the administration of justice system most accurately. When we talk of human right charter, if you see, it gives its extension first at a global level and then at a domestic level. At the global level, we talk of treaties, conventions, which I just mentioned. At the domestic level, there are three sources which we come. One would be the statutory laws, which follows as a matter of compliance to the charter which is agreed by you, and with the enforcement of Article 253, where we have obligation to make laws in furtherance to our international commitments. We make that law and the statutes come. Second is what emerges from the judgments of the court, as you heard various cases from the eloquent speakers. All these judgments of the court, which has come in the field of fundamental rights and more particularly on Article 21 of the Constitution, has more often than not been criticized as judicial activism. Firstly, judicial activism is being misunderstood as opposed to judicial creativity. Judicial creativity has the essence and scope of expanding the existing law or explaining the gaps in the legislative scheme of things. So the judicial creativity has been Indian Supreme Court and High Court's biggest tool to stabilize and administer proper judicial system to the people of India. I would certainly like to share with you, having spoken in probably most parts of the world, the Indian judicial system is adored. It is complimented universally. What the English law could not do and what the United States, where the jurisdiction of the court is controlled by the Senate, and in UK, where the court's authority and regulatory regime is controlled by the statutory laws, unlike India, where the Constitution controls directly the scope of justice administration by the Supreme Court, except and the creation of the basic structure theory by the Constitution, is lauded very well because our jurisprudence has developed with such a rapid thing, with such a rapid mechanisms of tools of law that rest of the world look at the Indian judicial system with great respect. The third and the most important part in reference to any concept of social is the social awareness, which was also referred to you as change or the mindset change. And it was also mentioned that we have constitutional duties. Your claim for rights would obviously be correlatable to your duties. So if a society, and where I don't mind sharing it frankly that yes, do we lack? If a society is able to perform its duties appropriately and the members of the society have that mindset, that is respect for human rights, which will mean respect for the rights of others. Claiming your rights by virtue of your authority of law is one thing, but your mindset to respect the right of other citizens, your neighbors, your fellow at the workplace, that is where the social awareness comes by virtue of the national character of a country. A sense of human rights is a fair trial and free access to justice. Happy to learn what Justice Tate just mentioned, that the access to commission is without financial liability, without complex procedure for filing your applications, and I'm sure it must be very expeditious as far as the adjudication is concerned. But what I am saying is that it's needn't, because we have a multi-structured judicial complex. The tribunals or the commissions are framed for the purposes of kind of supplanting or kind of helping the main wing of our judicial system, that is the court system. But nobody says, nobody can say that they substitute the court system. That is why in L. Chandra's case, the Constitutional Bench said that reiterating the basic structure theory plus saying that the tribunals can even examine the legislative validity of acts other than the acts which created it, and particularly in rights of people's right. Environment is your right, then the most important is the fair trial. The right of the people to have a fair trial, if you see it right from the good old days, the convention itself had based on the basis of the Second World War. It was because of the people who were getting ill treatment as war detainees that the basic theory of human rights came to the surface. Now, human right today is relatable to COVID, it is relatable to any spreading of disease, it is relatable to how would you treat the people across the country, migrants, migrant prisoners, every concept, because see, today the globe has become a very limited. It is no longer where you used to take like month to reach London. Today you can have your breakfast here and tea in London. So that is how the human interaction has increased to an extent that we need to respect and protect the rights. Now, as you know, in United Kingdom, the Human Rights Act 1998 was in furtherance to the Declaration. In Brazilian Constitution, it is provided there. In South Africa, you have the Constitution adopted the same in 1996, and we followed it right from day one. Therefore, international adoption and enforcement of human rights has its own value because it is said, and probably quite correctly, that if the citizen of a country feels secure of their rights and also have a definite confidence in the administration of justice system, that means that country is progressing in its true sense. Because human progress is the indicator to the national progress. And often, how confidence is explained is, a lot of people talk about areas before the Indian courts. You know, it's the most common topic thrown at the face of the judiciary. But has somebody realized that it is the confidence of the people in the judicial system that creates the burden? And I don't know, I forget which movie was it, I think. This is where that judge on the... Huh? No, I think it was something else where he's sitting at 2 o'clock at night and doing a case hearing. Huh? I appreciate my audience. And thanks. So if you see the line he says in that is that the areas before the courts are indicator of the confidence of people of India in the Indian judicial system. And that's what he says, that when two people fight, the first thing one will say to the other is, okay, I'll take you to the court. So that's what we are talking about today. We need to emphasize the conscience of the people that they feel that their rights are protected. and it will be the best complement to the governance by the government, administration of justice by the judiciary, and executive in its public duty discharge functions. If the people feel that their rights will not be violated. Another thing which is coming up in the modern times is the conflict between rights. You know, the state sometimes performs certain functions which are in conflict with your rights. So what do you do there? Like in COVID times, you know that it was challenged that how come the people are being put to their places? How come the trains are not running? The person who has come from Bihar to work in Maharashtra, why should we put there? Why should he be staying in Karnataka? Now the courts had to take out a concept of doctrine of balancing. So that is how you balance these rights, where violation of right is challenged. You apply different principles and then come to the conclusion whether it is final or it is not. There's two things, because they normally, and they talk, that lawyers can talk a lot, but judges can't. But this misconception has undergone a huge change. Now judges talk more and lawyers talk less. So before I am accused of talking too much, I would prefer to thank all of you, because audience is the most important part of a function. No matter who, how important was sitting on this side, but if we have nobody in front, probably it'll be just zero. So it is your presence that makes a person sitting here as worthy of anything. And I, while really thanking all of you on this side, and more particularly thanking you people on the other side, because I know it's a very difficult job to be a good listener. The human right, I think, if you were made to sit here for a terribly long time, it itself would be violation of human rights. So I don't want Justice Tate to be, having that blame to carry at the end of the day. So thank you all. Wish you the very best on this holy day of reminding, which Mr. Tate said is very correct, that it's a reminder to all of us, on whichever side, wherever we are, that value human rights, value the poor, value the disabled, value everything that is not what you have. Today you may be holding a status which others don't. So respect the people who don't have that advantage that you have today. And that is called sharing of values and rights. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you for your invigorating words and inspiring speech. आज के इस अहम अवसर पर उपस्थित सभी को संबोधित करते हुए आपने अपने बहुमूल्य विचारों की सौगात हमें दी. मैं दिल की गहराइयों से आपका शुक्रिया अदा करती हूँ. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point of time, I take the opportunity to give you some details of the exhibition. The program, as you can see, is not limited only to this auditorium, but at the waiting area in the reception, there is an exhibition by specially abled children, children from Observation Home of Children Aid Society, Maharashtra Department, Regional Mental Hospital, Thane. Please encourage them by visiting their tables, and your motivation will be really appreciated. While leaving after the program, you can visit their stalls. Ladies and gentlemen, Shri Sanjay Kumar, born in Bihar to a middle-class family of academicians, attended well-reputed Netarhat Residential School, served under various capacities as an IPS officer from 1989 to 2023, superannuated as DGP training and special units Maharashtra during period served 1 year in UN and 8 years in the Intelligence Bureau. The vote of thanks will be proposed by Shri Sanjay Kumar, member of the Maharashtra State Human Rights Commission.
आज का दिवस मानव इतिहास में एक महत्वपूर्ण अतुलनीय दिवस है। विश्व युद्ध के बाद जब सारी मानवता आक्रांतिक थी, परेशान थी, उस समय संयुक्त राष्ट्र संघ, जो उस समय बहुत ही अपरिपक्व संस्था थी, उन्होंने एक ऐसे अध्यादेश लाकर एक मानव इतिहास में एक अभूतपूर्व घटना घटी। एक ऐसा प्रस्ताव अंगीकृत किया और उद्घोषित किया जो मानव इतिहास और मानवता के लिए वरदान साबित हुआ। आज हम उसी दिन को याद कर रहे हैं। सिर्फ याद करना नहीं है, मानव अधिकारों के मूल्यों और उनमें अंतर्भूत विचारों को आत्मसम्मान और आत्मसात करने की ज़रूरत है। उन विचारों को प्रस्तावित व प्रचारित करने की ज़रूरत है। इस कार्यक्रम को उद्बोधित करने के लिए हमारे अध्यक्ष के निमंत्रण पर पधारे माननीय सेवा निवृत्त न्यायाधीश सर्वोच्च न्यायालय श्री स्वतंत्र कुमार जी को मैं तहे दिल से आभार प्रकट करता हूं कि उन्होंने हमारा निमंत्रण स्वीकार किया और अपने आशीर्वचनों से और अपनी मानव अधिकार से संबंधित विचारों से हमें समृद्ध किया। मैं आभार प्रकट करना चाहूँगा बॉम्बे उच्च न्यायालय के वरिष्ठ अभियोक्ता श्री मिलिंद साठे जी का, जो अपना बहुमूल्य समय निकाल कर आए और अपने मानवीय अधिकारों से संबद्ध विचारों से अवगत कराया। उन्होंने जिस तरह से इवोल्यूशन ऑफ ह्यूमन राइट के बारे में यहाँ अपने विचार प्रकट किए, वो हमारे लिए एक एजुकेशन था। एक वकील ज़्यादा बोलते हैं और लेकिन किस तरह से बोलते हैं, उन्होंने साबित किया। मैं आभारी हूँ डॉक्टर आशा वाजपेयी सदस्य नालसा का, जिन्होंने अपना मानव अधिकार के बारे में अपना प्रखर विचार प्रकट किया, स्पेशली अबाउट द वल्नरेबल ग्रुप, ट्रांसजेंडर, सेक्सुअल वर्कर, एल्डरली पीपल एंड ह्यूमन ट्रैफिकिंग। इनके अलावा मैं उन सभी लोगों का आभार प्रकट करता हूं जिन्होंने प्रत्यक्ष या परोक्ष रूप से इस कार्यक्रम को सफल बनाने में मदद की। विशेष आभार उन बच्चों का और उन संस्थाओं का जिन्होंने यहाँ आकर सबके सामने अपनी प्रस्तुति की। मैं यहाँ पे आपके सेकेंड चांस के बारे में एक जिस तरह से उन बच्चों ने यहाँ गुहार लगाई हमसे, हमारे समाज से, हमारे चेयरपर्सन साहब ने हम लोगों के ह्यूमन राइट कमीशन में एक बड़ा ही विचित्र इसी से संबंधित एक केस चल रहा है, जिसमें एक बच्चे का जन्म, जबकि उसकी माँ जेल में शिक्षा और भोग रही थी, उस समय उसका जन्म होता है और कुछ वो बेचारा 28 साल का है और आज वो एक सर्टिफिकेट लेके, बर्थ सर्टिफिकेट लेके घूम रहा है जिसमें उसका परमानेंट एड्रेस जेल लिखा हुआ है। और कहीं भी जाता है तो उसके चलते न उसे नौकरी दी जा रही है, न समाज उसे अपने में शामिल करने को तैयार है। हमारा कायदा ऐसा नहीं है, हमारा कानून ऐसा नहीं है, लेकिन किसी एक व्यक्ति की गलती के कारण उसके मानवीय हकों का और मानवीय अधिकारों का हनन हो रहा है। और वो आज आपको मानव अधिकार आयोग की आवश्यकता क्यों है, उसका एक छोटा सा नमूना है। और वो केस हम लोग अभी ले रहे हैं। सभी दर्शकों का, प्रचार माध्यमों के सदस्यों का और सह्याद्री ये जो गेस्ट हाउस है उसके नियोजकों का आभार। अंत में मैं सिर्फ यही कहना चाहूँगा कि मानव अधिकार की रक्षा की शुरुआत हर व्यक्ति का अपने घर से होना चाहिए। आप मानव अधिकारों को अपने घर में किस तरह से प्रस्तावित कर रहे हैं, उसी का रिफ्लेक्शन समाज में होगा। और ये आग जो है, आज का दिवस मानव अधिकार दिवस के रूप में इसलिए मनाया जाता है कि एक ज़रूरत है और ये हमेशा जारी रहनी चाहिए। मैं अपनी बात दुष्यंत कुमार की 2 पंक्ति के साथ ख़त्म करूँगा। उनका कहना है कि सिर्फ हंगामा खड़ा करना मेरा मकसद नहीं, मेरी कोशिश है कि ये सूरत बदलनी चाहिए। मेरे दिल में नहीं सही, तेरे दिल में ही सही, वो कहीं भी आग ये जलनी चाहिए। धन्यवाद।
शुक्रिया। और अब आभार ज्ञापन के पश्चात दिव्यांग बच्चों द्वारा प्रस्तुत राष्ट्रगान होगा। काइंडली राइज इन ऑनर ऑफ द नेशनल एंथम।
जनगण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता। पंजाब सिंधु गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंग, विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंग। तव शुभ नामे जागे, तव शुभ आशीष मागे, गाहे तव जय गाथा। जनगण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता। जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे।
जय हिंद. मंडळी, कार्यक्रमाची सांगता झालेली आहे. जेवणाची व्यवस्था याच मजल्यावर स्वागत कक्षाच्या पलीकडील दालनात केलेली आहे. आपण सर्वांनी तिथे प्रस्थान करा. लेट मी ऑल्सो रिमाइंड यू टू विजिट द एक्झिबिशन ऑन योर वे आउट. लेडीज अँड जेंटलमन, वी कन्क्लूड द function. Kindly proceed for lunch. Thank you.